couple shakeups in the Marvel world, and these aren't necessarily the same, big MCU things that we have been bombarded with for the last, I don't know, decade. We're getting a Blade movie, but it's sort of fallen apart, and we have some new developments from Deadpool 3, which has been highly anticipated by lovers of self-aware and comedic superhero movies. I like Deadpool 1. Deadpool 2 was okay. I think we were talking earlier, like kind of burning out on Ryan Reynolds. Anybody else?
I wasn't gonna admit that to the public.
Oh,
Oh my
Very,
don't
God.
very.
don't.
Uh-oh.
Just I'll
You
do
just
it.
outed Roland.
Just me. I didn't say who. He outed himself.
There you go. Yeah, no,
After Hitman's Wife Bodyguard, I just something hurt, and
Yeah.
but that's not really. I don't even know if a ton of people watch that movie. That's not one of those movies that was
I know I
like it
didn't.
caught the world by fire. I don't think it did, at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Ryan Reynolds. He's pretty much always Ryan Reynolds. I I think the best use of him lately was, spoiler alert, as a you want to put it up? Okay. Uh, as a as a cameo in Bullet Train, where it's not even a speaking thing. They cut to a guy they've been talking about the whole movie, and then they just show Ryan Reynolds is that guy. I thought
Wait, he
that's
had a
great.
cameo in Bullet Train. I thought
That's
he
what
had
I'm
a
saying.
because he had a big
Oh, that's
cameo
so
in the
fun.
Hobbs and Shaw movie, and that came out of nowhere. And then, okay,
It's
I'm so
honestly because like the thing is with Ryan Reynolds, you always know what kind of character it's gonna be. It's always gonna basically be Van Wilder, or Deadpool. Basically the same guy. Snarky and talking to the camera. But this was, I thought, like, good use of him there because he sort of implies a whole character just by mentioning him. But the big news isn't even about Ryan Reynolds, it's about Hugh Jackman, who's unretiring Wolverine just to be part of this. Do you think
Yes.
that's
speaking
worth
of
it?
which, somebody was like, "Oh, I think he got asked a question on social media or something like, hey, who convinced you to come back? Was it like Kevin Feige or was it like Ryan Reynolds?" And he was like, "Nobody convinced me. I make my own decisions." Like, I'm like, "Okay, cool." Um,
Kind of a
but
okay.
which when somebody uh offers you a certain amount of money, I think a lot of things start to make much
Yeah.
more sense. But then again, that's me speculating. I don't want to put words into anybody's
Who
mouth here, but
who
I
convinced him? Benjamin Franklin and his other friend, Benjamin Franklin.
can I ask you guys something here? I'm very curious, right? I mean, okay, so Roland, you and I had I don't, Andrew, have you seen the two videos where they announced this whole thing
I
and they
heard about him.
mention I mean, Roland, I'll let you go through this, but they mentioned that how this kind of ties in or doesn't tie into the Fox movies, like
So basically, Ryan Reynolds released two very short videos on his Twitter, which is what he does. He advertises with maximum effort, which is his name. But the first one is just him in the X-Force Deadpool costume, and he's doing like little tasks, blah blah blah. And he's like, we couldn't think of any ideas for Deadpool 3 except for one. And then Hugh Jackman's kind of in the back of the frame. He's like, hey, Hugh, would you come back as Wolverine? Hugh Jackman's like, yeah, sure. He walks away. They smile, shows the new logo with the Wolverine claws and the Deadpool symbol, which is very cool. And then it cuts. And then basically the internet went crazy for a couple hours. And then another video dropped of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds sitting on the couch explaining how this is going to work. Because a lot of people's concerns, including mine, is that it's going to be a disrespect to Logan and how that's going to work with the timeline. And basically, how they explained it was Logan dies in 2029. This is going to come out in 2023 or whatever year it is. And it's not going to affect that. They make a big deal in the video to say, we're not touching that. That's a great ending. This is just kind of before the ending. I
Side
don't.
quest.
Yeah, it's a side quest, literally. So
yes,
that's their explanation.
but to me, like that's still okay. I get it. Like in the story and world, it's still consistent. That tells me one thing. Are they actually addressing that those Fox movies, because Deadpool is supposed to be coming to the MCU in this film. Like this
Yeah.
is Deadpool's introduction to the MCU. So now by addressing Logan's existence in the first place with in context of Deadpool 3, are they saying that those Fox movies sort of are at least adjacent to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like those Sony Spider-Man movies now are, because of like what they did with No Way Home? And so I guess I'm answering my own question, saying like yes, they are saying that's how it is. But then the other question I had was, or the question that I have is, this is still at the end of the day nostalgia. It's you can dress it up however you'd like. They're going back to an
Yeah.
actor who on many occasions clearly said he was done with the role. And we know how
Yeah.
much of a toll it is on him physically, because, training for playing Wolverine isn't just like you just show up and you're playing a teacher in a school or something. No, which he's he did like a few movies that were like that. He played like a principal in this movie, and that's Hugh Jackman's been doing a lot of roles where he just looks like Hugh Jackman usually does, walking around, in Hollywood or in LA or in Australia, wherever he is. But for this movie, he has to go through this rigorous routine and bulk up. I mean, he's
Yeah.
not exactly getting younger here. So, A, there's probably a financial motivation. B, is this still
Probably.
another example of Marvel getting after nostalgia and playing on people's feelings? I mean, is there any artistic merit to this endeavor?
100%, because there's no way that they would take away, and it is taking away. This was not only a goodbye to the fans, but a goodbye to him with the character with Logan, which is such an amazing ending that you really couldn't ask for anything more. And they got to think about, oh, well, we're about to go into this phase, and then the phase after that. It would have made more sense to cast a new Wolverine, as much as we did like Hugh Jackman, and have him go, kind of butt heads with Ryan Reynolds Deadpool the entire time, and maybe even Deadpool comparing him to Hugh Jackman the entire time, and then at the end of it, they're buddies. But this is just,
That's actually really I that sounds fun. That sounds more fun than the
yeah,
nostalgia route.
and it would make more sense for production wise, because then they could actually use that Wolverine for
Well,
future.
not only that, but like that would be a really smart way to unwrite the Sony X-Men and start a new franchise. You would, because it's an awkward move, and
Yeah,
Deadpool's specialty is being like, well, he's self-aware,
yeah,
and outside of the movie, he brings in the reality. He could be like, yeah, you're not Hugh Jackman. We wanted Hugh Jackman or whatever. Like the way you've described is great. Just comparing him to some nebulous idea of a different Wolverine.
he
You
makes
know,
fun of the awkward to make it less awkward,
yeah.
which
I
would have
mean,
been a so much
that's
better transition.
you've offered them a really good out there, and it sounds like they're not going to take it.
Yeah, do something
Yeah,
about it, Marvel. Come on,
I mean,
they
because
got
like
plenty of
like
ideas.
at the end of the day, everything else being equal, this movie literally is. I mean, you guys just mentioned it. You could have brought back Wolverine and recast the role with like somebody younger, because like somebody who can kind of take this forward within the MCU. This the character. You could have not had Wolverine in this at all. You could have poked fun at it indirectly, but the very
Yeah.
specific route they went was bringing Hugh Jackman back to play that version. I mean, here's the thing. For all we know, though, they might say, "Oh, this is Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine," but it's not technically the Fox version, or they could just say, "Yeah, this is literally the same Wolverine." But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it is a nostalgia play, because like it's not the same as bringing John Krasinski in, because that was like fans were just asking for that. But it is
Yeah.
the same thing as bringing Tobey Maguire back as Spider-Man. It's literally
Yeah,
that. Now, in that case, I think it worked out well because they did a good job of tying it into the story of the movie. So to me, I am personally all game for this as long as it ties into the story and the movie's enjoyable. I mean, if the movie's really fun, nobody's gonna care about the artistic integrity of going back and bringing an actor
I
to
don't
play a
think
role they
anybody's going to
retired
see
from.
Deadpool for artistic integrity.
Okay, fair enough. Well, speaking of artistic integrity or lack thereof, another project that's been in the news from the MCU this week is Blade. So this is a movie that they announced, I think, like 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con, and they brought out Mahershala Ali, and award-winning, Academy Award-winning actor. They're bringing him into the fold, and he's on the stage with all these other people, and big uh, noise. And of course, they had a hat with the logo on it because Kevin Feige has a hat with the logo for every movie that he produces for Marvel. They were promoting Black Widow too. Anyway, the point being, this movie was announced, the movie was announced, the actor was cast 3+ years ago. Now, 3 years later, we find out that 6 weeks before this movie is about to go into production, that they basically lost the director. The director left the movie because he just, his name is Bassam Tariq, yeah. So he left the movie because it seems like there were creative differences, which is always like, that's Hollywood speak for, something else is wrong. It's usually just like a cover story. And
Yeah.
we know from some insider sources who, like, for example, here's a tweet from someone who I think is Jeff Snyder. He used to work for Variety, so he's got good connections. He posted on Twitter, and he mentioned this on his own podcast, The Hot Mic, that Marvel insiders are actually no, this is the wrong tweet. I'm sorry. I'm talking about something we're going to talk about later. But I don't know if I had that tweet pulled up. But the point being, he said that as from what he knows, the script is basically a mess. It has exactly 2 lackluster action sequences, and Mahershala Ali is very frustrated at this point, as you would be. This guy has put his career at least on somewhat of a hold to book enough time in his schedule to both film this movie and promote this movie, and now we know this movie is probably not going to make its original release date, because if you lose a director 6 weeks before filming starts, there's no way you can go out, and even if you get another director the next day, that new person now has to kind of figure out what the heck is going on with this project before they can move forward. So the question I have for you guys, I mean, A, do you guys think this movie can make its original 2023, I think November 2023 release date? And B, is this movie in danger of ultimately kind of just completely falling apart and getting canceled? Or do you think the Marvel is going to kind of continue, get a new writer, bring in a new director, and kind of fix this problem and move forward?
That's tough because I mean we've seen it before. I mean, I remember when they announced Gambit, what was that, a decade ago? Something like that.
And
And
that eventually got canceled, right? Because the Fox merger and everything, and then they were like, yeah, Kevin Feige's not doing this. So,
it
and
just,
Channing Tatum still laments about that. But yeah.
yeah. So I could see it going, both ways, them maybe having like a Flashpoint thing where they keep trying to get different directors and keep trying to work around things, and it's very prolonged, and maybe we will see it, or maybe just things fall out. It's can be very up in the air. But I personally think that they'll stick their teeth into this as a very cool character with a cool background that kind of gets into like the dark Marvel almost, like with monsters and like the more supernatural.
Well, I
And
guess that would explain how Werewolf by Night ties in.
exactly. And if Werewolf by Night really kicks in, and we already know that we loved Moon Knight, I think they know that Blade is a sure hit. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, later in the week, reports came out. Jeff Snyder being the same person, he was putting this out, and then Lizzie Hill from My Cosmic Circus, that they're not apparently gonna go into production on this in 6 weeks. Now they're thinking about starting production in January of 2023, which for a movie that's probably not gonna be as visual effects heavy as like a lot of Marvel movies are, but still, filming in January and then trying to make a November release date for a studio tentpole, that timeline doesn't quite add up. I highly doubt this is going to come out in 2023 now, and then with how interconnected Marvel projects tend to be, I wonder how this is going to affect everything else that was scheduled around it, like before or after. But to kind of moving on for the time being, though, you mentioned something about Werewolf by Night. This is a project that is coming out very soon. We are in October now, the first week of October, and this is coming out, what, I think like around Halloween. So, Roland, the first reviews are out. Have you looked at what people are saying about this?
right now I'm seeing that they have 100% tomato meter. That's certified fresh if I ever saw it.
Well, it's only 10 reviews. And if you look at what people are saying, it's things like, The delightful retro horror stylings and a pair of endearing leads successfully distract, at least for a while, from some of the more conventional MCU traits. So I guess
Okay.
they're trying new things, but maybe playing it safe a little bit. You can still get some of that standard MCU stuff. Another
Yeah,
one,
I
this is
think
from,
it's
yeah,
probably a good move if MCU stuff doesn't all feel like the same
yeah.
movie.
Which I think,
There's a really good review kind of to like the bottom left
bottom left, yeah. Sean
where
Chandler.
it says Werewolf by Night is one of MCU Phase 4's biggest risks.
Yeah, there it is. So Werewolf by Night is one of MCU Phase 4's biggest risks, but also one of its most pleasant surprises. Marvel's tribute to classic monster movies is violent and refreshing. I like those two words. My biggest complaint is that I wish there was more of it. Oh, so I guess it
Okay,
left you asking
that's
for
a
more.
good review. Yeah, that's all right. I'm getting like some hope. I'm scared.
Yeah.
All right.
This person from IO9, Germain Lucier, he said that Werewolf by Night is the least MCU entry into the MCU since, well, before the MCU existed. Okay. That's a good thing. It's a
That's a
full,
great
it's
thing.
yeah, it's a full-on love letter to everything monster and monster movies. I like that. Here's another one. This is something that I don't think anybody else has mentioned in these reviews. I love how Michael Giacchino, who by the way we all know is a composer, but apparently the guy can direct, so he's directing this. So Giacchino pays homage to the monster movies of old, even going so far as to have cigarette burns in the corner like some beat up 35mm film print, but also introduces horror to the MCU in a fresh, compelling way. And I've heard that this thing has gore, like there's blood in there. Obviously,
Okay.
a lot of this is in black and white, so you're not quite seeing the gore, type thing. They hide some of that. I mean, we saw the trailer for this a little short while ago at D23 that released it. And what do you guys think overall about this? I mean, are you excited? Are you
This
gonna
is the
check this
first
out?
time I've ever like been compelled to go be like I'm interested in seeing an MCU movie now. It just it sounds different and that's exciting.
And the other thing I wanted to very quickly mention here, Kevin Feige said something very interesting this week when basically promoting this movie, or I think it's like a mini series. Let's call it a mini series. He said that Werewolf by Night will ultimately become quite important to the future of the MCU. So that's a very ominous thing for him to say. How do you guys think this even connects to the larger world of the MCU? Any speculation?
I'm out of my depth in terms of MCU knowledge at this point. Like I sort of jumped off the comic train after what eventually became the movie Endgame. Like the fact that there's more stories to be told, they're not ones that I'm familiar with. So maybe that'll be refreshing because we're not gonna see the same stories over and over again. But I don't know. You said that there's like a dark Marvel thing with monsters and stuff. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, Midnight Suns, man. There's a whole underworld and crazy, Marvel's been
Blade,
around
Moon
since,
Knight,
like
uh,
late 30s. So their
yeah.
lore and all the things that they touch and reach on is massive.
So is this
But
Yeah.
going back to the
And
1930s, or is it just shot
uh
that way?
I was just saying Marvel in general, but this is kind of going to like very like classic 40s
and
horror.
Right,
one
but I
key
mean, is
event.
it
So
is
Moon Knight, his original comic book appearance where he first came on the scene was in a Werewolf by Night comic, right?
Yes.
right?
So
What I'm asking is, does the story take place in the 30s or 40s to make sense of this stylist,
I don't
the
think
style that they're going with,
I don't
or are
think
they
so.
just filming it that way?
Maybe it's possible, I guess.
We don't know.
Um, I know from like some of what I've heard and what I've seen is, I mean, people are saying not only is this gory and horrifying in many ways, and it's also like a homage to those 30s and 40s black and white monster movies, it's also kind of a little bit meta and kind of pokes fun and has a little bit of fun with it. So there's some elements of comedy in it, as all MCU things do apparently. So um, I guess the goal would be to hopefully find the right balance. The critics who have seen it so far and talked about it, they certainly think that it's worth the watch. I'm looking forward to it. I personally think this would be at least worth a shot. Phase
Yeah.
4 is taking a
Yeah.
lot of different shots at new things, and this is one of them. So
Well, it seems like a step away from She-Hulk, so that's a good thing.
Yes, I
Um,
think this probably as far away from She-Hulk as you're gonna be able to get in the MCU right now. But to finish up, this is something that I sort of tripped across earlier in the segment, but here it is. So rumor has it that Harrison Ford has been approached or was approached to join the MCU. Now, we don't know if he said yes, if they're still in the process of having those conversations, or if he's moved on and he's kind of passed on the role. He would be coming in to essentially take over the role of General or I think Secretary Thaddeus Ross. He was at one point rumored he might be coming in Fantastic Four as well, as playing Franklin Storm, who's the father of Sue Storm and Johnny Storm. So but the latest rumor is he might be, being the person who they're looking at recasting the role that was once upon a time played by William Hurt, the late great William Hurt, who passed away earlier this year. And he would be taking over the role of Thaddeus Ross, who we last saw that character in Black Widow last year, which the movie was shot a few years ago, so it wasn't something super recent, but and it delayed due to the pandemic. But the question I have for you guys, I mean, do you think this is actually going to happen? Is Harrison Ford even going to consider this? Do you think he's already passed on it? And B, if it does happen, do you think he's a good fit for the role?
it sounds like they're just trying to find a place to put him. The fact that they've offered him a couple different roles, I think they just sort of want Harrison Ford in it. Um, I'm not. This isn't going to surprise anybody. I'm not a real Harrison Ford fan, and I just feel like I'm also not a big MCU fan at this point. So go nuts. Have whoever you want in whatever movie. I don't really care.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. I was never the biggest fan of Thunderbolt Ross. They kind of, I don't know. I think might even make sense to not even recast them, and whenever they have this team, be like, oh, in honor of Thunderbolt Ross,
Or just do a bunch of
missions.
gags where you're just feeling like, he couldn't make it to the meeting. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're like, where is that guy? He's stuck in an elevator.
I thought with that character of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, like whatever, I think that's her name, who's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she's been kind of spliced into recent Disney Plus series where she's sort of collecting all the pieces of who we know are the cast members of this movie now. I thought she was gonna be like the Nick Fury, Thaddeus Ross of this team. I didn't think they were gonna bring Thaddeus Ross character back, but I wouldn't mind it. I guess it could, you could cast worse people in the role. I don't think this is gonna draw quite the ire from. I at least don't think that people, some people are saying, recast T'Challa, and they clearly chose not to do that there. It looks like they're looking to do that in this case, though. I think you look at those things on a per case basis. You can't really universally say recast anybody who passes away or don't recast anybody. By the way, one rumor that's been going around too, again, all of these are rumors, taken with a grain of salt. Apparently they might have announced, they were set to announce like Harrison Ford in that role when they announced the Thunderbolts movie at D23, but then Kathleen Kennedy stepped in and she was like, look, Lucasfilm's presentation is going to focus a lot on Indiana Jones 5. And we want Harrison Ford's name to be, associated with that project and that project alone for now. We don't want to have you guys like take away from that, because as big as Indy is as a property, it in today's world is not as popular as the MCU is, particularly like around the world, even beyond America. So I think if that was the case, good move on their part from a marketing standpoint. But I wouldn't mind it. I don't think you guys either way, like Andrew's indifferent to it.
Totally indifferent.
Very quick, just to kind of wrap this up, we talked about 4 projects. We talked about Deadpool 3, Wolverine coming back. We talked about Werewolf by Night, which is coming out really soon. We talked about Blade, which may not be coming out for a while with Mahershala Ali. And then Harrison Ford potentially getting cast as Thaddeus Ross in the Thunderbolts movie. Of those 4 projects, which interests you the most?
Probably Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, I was always excited about this, but with these reviews, and I don't know, we'll see. I think it will definitely disrupt the stream that they've been doing.
Yeah, Yeah, it sounds the most promising. How about you, Dan?
I think to me of all of those projects, I'm most looking forward to Deadpool 3 because just I'm just curious. I just I think there's enough of a track record there that it's still gonna be a good movie even though it's kind of feels a little like of a cash grab bringing somebody in for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
Werewolf by Night though might become my favorite of the four because I just think that this thing has a lot of potential. It really does.
I don't like to
Yeah.
predict favorites before I've seen them. We'll see. I'm interested. I'm absolutely interested. But let's see if you're interested. If you're curious, if you're I'm not doing a good job. I can already tell halfway through the sentence. Not gonna work totally well. I'm a little tired. Follow us, be our friend, subscribe on all of the platforms. We're on all of the platforms. Thank you for watching another episode of Oh So Curious. We will see you soon. Goodbye.